Hello, and welcome back to our fifth episode. Today, we are going to be talking about making real friends. Because if you are ex Jehovah's Witnesses, which I'm assuming you are because that's what my whole channel is about, you all know what it's like to be boom, instantly with no family. Okay, so before we get started, I have to talk about this because I use my hands a lot to gesture. And yesterday I stained a whole lot of wood, didn't use gloves, and so my fingers look really gross. This is after multiple scrubbing attempts. So if you see me gesturing and my hands look disgusting, sorry guys, they're actually clean. They're just stained for a couple more days. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about making real friends. Let's start with something that I hear from a lot of people. I hear a lot of people say, I was always the black sheep. I never fit in. There's something wrong with me. My fingers look really gross. That's why I had to say that. But they'll say, there's something wrong with me. Somehow I can't make friends. So before we get into how to make real friends, I want to address that first. There is nothing wrong with you. You're fine. The reason why you felt like a black sheep is because you were in a cult. So here's how you make real friends. First of all, you need to be honest. You need to have the ability to say, hey, this is what I think, and this is what I'm doing, and I don't think I agree with this, or I don't like this. Without freedom of speech, you cannot make real friends. So if you think about the time that you spent in the religion, did any of us have freedom of speech? Did any of us have the ability to say, oh, this is what I think about that person's talk, or this is what I think about the new light that just came out on Generations or Beards or whatever? We were muted. We were very much so muted in the fact that, well, you when you started having doubts about the religion, how many people could you share those doubts with? Zero. And communication to make real friends has to be a two-way street. So we need the freedom of speech, but whoever it is that we're trying to be friends with, they also need freedom of speech, which was non-existent in the religion. So if you were in the religion and you felt like you couldn't really connect with people, you couldn't really make friends, and there's something wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with you. You were in a cult that prevented freedom of speech. And that's why we had surface friendships, maybe, but they weren't profound. They weren't soul friendships because we didn't have the freedom of speech. Another key important thing for friendships is freedom of judgment. So we all know we came from a highly judgmental organization where everything is judged, from your sweater neckline to the length of your skirt to the tightness of your pants, to quote the infamous Mr. Morris. We lived in a world that was full of judgment. And when judgment is everywhere, you cannot have real friendships. You have to have honesty and you have to have the lack of judgment. So, for those of you who might have felt like there was something wrong with you because you never fit in, that's the reason why. You didn't have freedom of speech to show the world who you, well, not the world, show the congregation who you were. And there was this constant fear of judgment. So even if you're talking about something which could have freedom of speech, like movies or entertainment or something, there's always somebody who's going to say, oh, you watch a Disney movie? That's full of magic. Or, you watch that movie? There was one swear word in it. Or, we always had that fear. That's why it was so hard to make true friends. That's why it was really hard to connect with other people. Here's the other thing that made it hard. So, how many people are in a congregation? 70 publishers, maybe 80 publishers, something like that. What's the likelihood of being stuck in a random group of people from all ages, the 80-year-olds and the 10-year-olds and the 15-year-olds and the newly married and the maybe people from different cultures? The congregation would be made up of this group of people that was usually kind of random, and we were limited to making friends in the congregation. So maybe we could go to maybe if you live in a bigger area, maybe there were some other congregations close by, or maybe when you go to a circuit assembly, you'd have an opportunity to meet people. But really, our most intimate contacts were with this random group of 70 to 80 publishers that were in our congregation. That makes friendships a whole lot harder, because what's the likelihood that you're going to have something in common with all of them? We had one thing in common. We had the religion in common. That was probably it. For the most of the publishers in that congregation, that was probably the only thing that you had in common, is that you were all attending meetings together. So it's important when you're creating a friendship to have more than just this superficial thing that kind of bonds you together. You need to have other things in common, like your true beliefs, your likes, your dislikes, and things like that. Honesty is another twist on the whole honesty part too, is you never really knew who the other person was. So, for example, anybody who might have seen my life story, you know that the first husband was gay. That would have been really helpful to find out before I got married, obviously. So why does that happen? It's again because we have to hide who we are in the religion. And that makes making a friend really, really difficult, because we don't really know who they are. In the world, it's a lot easier to make friends, because that facade, that mask of this is who I am, is usually taken off a lot quicker, if they do it at all. So when you're meeting people in the world, they're very quick to say, oh, I belong to this political party, or I belong to this political party, or I'm gay, or whatever. And then right off the bat, you know who you're dealing with. Versus when we were in the religion, we have no idea what our friends really think, what they really feel. So for those of you that felt like you were the black sheep, no, you were in a cult. You have people skills just fine. You were just not in an environment where you were free to use your people skills and your people radar too, because I'm sure that there were people, every congregation has it. There are these people that are just, you don't really know why you don't like them, but there's just something there. And guess what? Jehovah loves them, so you need to love them too. You need to be friends with them anyway. That's really hard, because a lot of times our intuition is telling us something. Maybe it's telling us that they're not being honest and forthcoming. Maybe they have an energy, or maybe there's just something about that person that our unconscious mind is picking up all this information, because know this, your mind is extremely intelligent. The human mind takes in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bits of information per second, that we can't handle all that information consciously. So the brain has a filtering mechanism on it, so that we can only pay attention to 2 or 3 things, and the rest of that information is stored in the back of our mind, and it surfaces as those little voices, those little intuitions. They're like, I don't really know. That's why you could meet somebody for the first time and immediately go, I don't know. But you didn't have the freedom to obey that intuition, while you're in the cult. Now you do. So now you're in this outside world. You have freedom to express yourself and be who you are. The other person has the freedom to reciprocate honesty and who they are. There is much less judgment on the outside world. There is judgment because judgment is human, but you'll find that it is not anywhere near as extreme as what we had to face when we were in the cult. So again, not that it's not there, but it's not as intense. It's not as intense as what we're used to. And then there's this feeling of knowing somebody faster. So you can weed people out much faster, right? Not only that, but like I just said, in the congregation, you're very limited to how many people you can try to make friends with. Well, now literally the whole world is open to us. It's not just the people that you work with, but the parents of somebody at school, somebody that you meet at the gas station, somebody that you meet at doing a hobby, somebody that you meet going for a walk or at the dog park. We can make friends with anybody. And that right there makes the whole friendship thing much, much, much easier. The other thing that commonly happened in the religion too was cliques. The elders' wives and the pioneers, and there'd be these cliques and they gang up, and if you weren't cool enough or spiritual enough, or if you didn't go out in service enough or answer enough or whatever, it was very common to feel excluded. So all of that can compound why we come out of the religion and we feel like nobody likes me. I don't know how to make friends. I'm a black sheep. I don't fit in. You were just in the wrong group. That's all. What made us friends in the religion was really more just comrades. We just so happened to live in the same area and belong to the same religion. So those friendships ended up not being real friendships, as you're very much aware now, because now you're out here, you're creating this new life, and all of those people, bye. Real friendships don't do that. There's a scripture that talks about the brother or the friend that's there in times of distress and times of, I can't remember the whole scripture, but you probably know which one I'm talking about. And they promised us that in the religion, but that all came with strings attached. They will be your friends if you shut up, play by the rules, color in the lines, and don't say what you really think, and don't ask anybody what they really think, because then you got to rat them out. Oh yeah, that's another thing. So true friends don't turn on each other and rat each other out, which is 100% what the religion encouraged us to do. So we were united, but we were not. We were separate. You were on your own with your own thoughts, your own world, nobody to talk to, and this obligation that if anybody that you know, if anybody that's your friend says something a little off, doesn't agree with something, we're going to go tell on them, because God's watching, and it's our responsibility to tell everybody we're like cops. We're like policing each other. That is a recipe for fake friends. No, there's nothing wrong with you. All right. So now we're going to focus on our new life. So what do you do now? The first thing that you do is be yourself. Be yourself. Don't be afraid to share with people who you are. There's a beautiful quality of people to rally around somebody who's lost something. And in my experience, it's very unusual to have somebody that is like us, where you can be an adult and not have one single human in your world. So the best thing, because creating friendships is usually kind of also wanting to know, oh, who are you? Where have you come from? What background have you come from? And we've got this huge background of gross trauma. So the first thing that I would suggest you do is script out a small paragraph that you can memorize, because people will ask these questions just like, oh, hi, how are you? Do you have kids? Do you have family? Because they want to get to know us. And they don't need all of it. That can be kind of overwhelming when we're talking about making new friends. So I think probably the easiest thing to do is just make up a response that says, you know what? I came from a really complicated background. The truth is, I came from a cult, a religious, very strict religion. And I realized that it was wrong. And so when I left, I lost my whole world. I lost my family. I lost my friends. I lost everybody because I no longer believe what they believe. So this is my new life, and I'm here to make new friends. That kind of like explains enough so that they're like, oh, wow, okay. If you want, maybe you can say that it is Jehovah's Witnesses if you want. But, the truth is they're really not going to understand the disfellowshipping and judicial committees and all the trauma and the intensity of it. And once you find somebody that you get along with and you jive with, definitely you can feel free to go into that later. But in the initial stages of creating friendship, it's like I said, it's natural to want to know who you are, where did you come from? And so scripting out for yourself a simple explanation makes that moment much less awkward for us. Okay? Because I remember when I was first out and people would be like, oh, so do you have kids? And I'd kind of be like, where do I start? Right? And then that kind of feels a little weird. The energy gets a little weird because they can kind of tell that there's more than what you're saying. And that's not the feeling that we want to create when we're going for the new friendship things. So honesty is always the best policy. And like I said, script out a short paragraph. So I just gave you one example. It could be something like, I don't have anybody in my life because they all belong to a religion I no longer believe in anymore. And they excommunicate. So I now have no contacts with anybody. So I'm open for a whole new world. Who are you? What about you? Where do you come from? And then, so the initial conversations, script it out for yourself, a short paragraph that says, this is what happened. This is what I'm going through. Let me get to know you. How about you? What about you? Where do you come from? Okay. There is no shame in our past. There's lots of people who have gone through trauma for all kinds of reasons. The initial conversation as you're starting your new friendships is probably not the time to go into all of our baggage that we haven't quite healed yet. We can go into that, like I said, we can go into that later. But finding a comfortable, familiar way to explain to people, I came from a religion where nobody celebrated birthdays. They didn't celebrate any holidays. Um, we we were not encouraged to make any friends outside of the religion. So now that I've left the religion, I've left that whole world behind. So I'm available all the time if you want to invite me over for anything, because I have no world behind me. People resonate with that. And then it explains too why you don't have any friends or family. And then as the friendship progresses, you can go into it a little bit more in detail if that feels appropriate. But for the first advice, script out a little paragraph explaining where you are right now. So who do you start with? Who do you start with? Do you even Do you work? Are there people at work? Those are usually the first people that we start with, but don't limit yourself to that. One of the other videos that I'm going to do is about our identity, because part of what we lose when we leave the religion is we lose who we are. We were pioneers, we were elders' wives, we were even our family titles, like I was a sister, I was a niece. All of those titles kind of change when we leave, because even though we are still technically family, the dynamics not the same. So our identity feels like all weird. So we part of making friends is also recreating our identity, and who are we now? Who do we want to be? That means we get to create this new life for ourselves. So is there a hobby or something that you didn't have time for before? There's all kinds of free classes out there, free classes for art, maybe taking music classes, dance classes, a language class, because we used to dedicate a lot of time to the religion. 2 meetings a week used to be 3 meetings a week. How much time did that take up? I don't, even if you didn't prepare for meetings, I think you still were spending 5 hours a week going to meetings and getting dressed, right? Not even counting service and all the other time. We easily dedicated 5 hours a week. What have you done with those extra 5 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours? What have you done with that? Sometimes we have a tendency to fill it with more work or more cleaning or whatever, fill it with life. But you know what? I would also suggest that you dedicate some of the hours that you used to dedicate to the religion and dedicate it to yourself. Dedicate it to exploring who you are now. Because as you start exploring who you are now, that's going to introduce you to a world of people who are also exploring similar things. So, like I said, hobbies is a great thing. We were never allowed to play sports or anything like that. I am not very athletic, but maybe you might like to join a sports team or something like that. Then you're going to start finding people that you have things in common with. And having things in common is the basis of friendship. So you're finding people that you have some things in common with. Great. Now you have your little introductory speech that, hey, you know what? My background is super weird. I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know if you know much about that religion, but they don't celebrate holidays, they don't celebrate birthdays. And if you choose to leave the religion, they excommunicate. So I don't have a past. That was my past in a nutshell. So I'm here, I'm a new person. What about you? What do you like to do? Okay. How do we overcome our own fears about maybe not being able to make friends? Well, like I mentioned, in a congregation, you're stuck to being with the same 70 or 80 people. The truth is, you're not obligated to like everyone. You don't have to get along with everybody. So if you meet somebody that you don't agree with, bye. Okay, nice to meet you. I'll talk to you when I see you the next time. You do not have to be friends with everyone. That you do not have to be friends with everyone. They are free to their own opinions. You are free to your own opinions. Because this new world that we're in, there's no judgment. Maybe they have different political opinions than you have. You might have no political opinions, because if you've recently come out of the religion, obviously we're politically neutral, so we may not really know. But there might be certain things that maybe you don't agree with, or maybe you do agree with. Guess what? You're free to not like them if you don't have anything in common with them. Yay! That's also freedom. You have freedom to not make friends, to not force yourself to hang out with this person, even though you can barely stand them. Now you're on a search for somebody that you can jive with, somebody that you really can get along with. Okay. Maybe you find it right away, maybe you don't, and it's okay. This is a normal process. What we have to unlearn, rewind and unlearn, what we have to reprogram is this feeling in our minds, this thought that we have to get along with everybody, and that everybody has to like us. That's a fallacy of the religion. And it was definitely a fallacy because it didn't work. We did not like everybody, even though we were like, oh, hi, can't wait to go out and service with you, with that super annoying person. Okay. Give yourself permission to not make friends with somebody that you just don't seem to jive with. And be open to making friends with whoever you come across. Somebody in the grocery store, like I said, somebody that you're on a walk with. Now you get to create your circle of friends. And like I said, finding a hobby, starting to explore who you are, that goes a long way in trying to decide who you want to offer the friendship to and whether or not they reciprocated and it comes back. So another thing, I think we were sensitive to rejection because we wanted the cool people to like us. We wanted everybody because we had such limited options. Now it's a blessing in disguise if somebody doesn't like you, because now you know and you can move on. And you don't have to waste your energy trying to force a friendship where it doesn't fit. You do have people skills. You do have intuition to know whether you're going to get along with somebody or not. So now what you have to do is start practicing. Start practicing. And you know what? We do have skills to talk to total strangers. We really do have skills. We were trained to go knock on doors and talk to complete strangers. So I guess in the worst case scenario, you could go door to door and say, hi, I'm looking for friends. So I think it's easy to look at our past and think that it was all harmful. But we did take some skills out of that. And the ability to talk to strangers is one. Even if it wasn't super comfortable, we do know how to talk to strangers. And now we're not talking to them about uncomfortable topics like religion. Now we're talking to people about fun topics like my puppies. Or, hey, you know what? I've always wanted to learn to play the violin. I'm here to learn how to play the violin. Now you're free to find the people that are your tribe. And it doesn't always have to be in just one location either. The world is big. We have literally billions of people to choose from. So I'm trying to keep these videos right at about 25 minutes, and I'm already going a little bit over. So this is the first part of the Making Real Friends. We're going to go more in one of the other episodes. We're going to go a little bit more into the NLP, the brainwashing part. This is more like the logical part with some logical steps that we can take. I'm sure there's probably going to be more of us that are still struggling a little bit more emotionally. So I'm going to do another video where we're going to talk about our emotional makeup and how to heal that emotionally. But for the time being, the best advice that I can give you is make up a little paragraph explaining why you have no friends so that it's comfortable and then it flows off you and you get that big elephant out as soon as possible. This is why I'm weird. I'll tell you what. The reason why I'm weird is because I grew up in a cult. And so I'm integrating into real life right now. So help me out. People love that. People love that honesty. So make your little phrase that explains why you are a tribe of one at whatever age that you are at. Explain that. And you know what? Be open. Be willing to say whatever you think. Say whatever you think, because in this world, you're allowed to have judgments and opinions. You're allowed to say, "Oh, you like that political candidate? Well, I don't really like it." So we don't have to be friends. You're free to go choose somebody that has your same values, because now you can express those values and open the door to a wide range of people. We had a very closed range of people in our previous life. And you might find that there are all kinds of people out there that you never would have given a chance to before. Maybe their hair is kind of extreme, or maybe they've got a ton of tattoos or a ton of piercings, and we would have judged them as worldly or bad association beforehand, when you know what? The truth is, they're just people too. And they might be really cool people. So if we don't want to feel judged ourselves, we're not going to do the judging anymore either. Go ahead and talk to that person that maybe you would have not talked to before. You know, I have a really, 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 really close friend that I love almost like a brother, and he's gay. In the religion, I never would have had the friendship ability or I would never have been able to develop a relationship with him. Obviously, why? Now that there's no requirements of judgment, he's a wonderful human. He's a wonderful human and completely out of the box of somebody that I would have picked as a friend in the past. So make up your paragraph, open up your box to anybody, start discovering who you are through hobbies, through things that maybe you've never had time to explore. Now that we don't have meetings and service and all the other brainwashing activities, you have more time on your hands. Instead of using that time for mundane things, necessary things, even like work, this is really a healing time for you that's really important. And so I would highly suggest that you take the extra time that you've gained by not being one of Jehovah's Witnesses and invest it in yourself. Invest it in some sort of activity that you've never tried before, some sort of whether even if it's a small road trip where you're only going a little half an hour away, use the time to find yourself and to find the people that are going to become your new tribe. Okay, so that's today's 30-minute session. And subscribe so that you don't miss anyone's. I'm also going to be doing videos in Spanish. So if you get an alert and it's a Spanish video, you can listen to it in Spanish if you want. Maybe you could learn Spanish or share it with somebody else. All right, guys, I love you. I'll see you in the next video. Talk to you soon.